Hey everyone, so today's video we're going to talk about ductless again. This summer has by far been the most busy we've been with ductless mini split calls, giving people information about it. And I noticed that people have a lot of questions about it, so I was going to go over the frequently asked questions about ductless mini splits. So of course when you think of a mini split, most people just think of something hanging on the wall. And a lot of times it's an objection with homeowners because they don't want to hang anything on their walls. There are certain instances where we can put mini splits in ceilings. Mitsubishi and Daikin both have different versions for it. Mitsubishi has a cool version where if you have a little bit of attic space or access up there, you can put these recessed units up in the ceiling, and that looks like a central air conditioner's in there. It's just more thin, but it doesn't take up any space on the wall, which is nice. And then there's the ceiling test, of course, for when you have the, a lot of times in basements you can have a false ceiling where the tiles come up. You can put mini splits right up in there, and they fit actually perfectly into that, which is really nice as well. That way you don't have to put anything on the floor or the wall. Also, another thing is that we hear is people like, oh, I don't like hanging those bulky things on the wall. So we already addressed that we can sometimes put them in the ceiling, but also the companies are starting to come out with designer series mini splits, which look a lot nicer. Both Mitsubishi and Daikin have some really nice designs that they have there. So it looks less like a bulky air conditioner and more like, a lot of people say it looks like a speaker that's sitting on your wall, and it just sits a lot flatter, and it just is, it looks a lot nicer in home. So if design or having something hang on your wall is a concern, there's ways to address it there. And especially in this area, I think a lot of people think of them as just air conditioners, which you know, we obviously get really intense winters, so we use our fuel heat. But a nice thing about mini splits is, for the most part, they're mostly all heat pumps. What that means is that it can run heat out of them as well, and it's really good for shoulder seasons like I've talked about before, like the fall or the spring. You can run it, and instead of turning on your fuel for heat for maybe just a cooler day, you can use the mini splits as a heat pump, and it'll be really comfortable there. And then you want to look into the different ratings for those as well. Some of them are 100% efficient down to 5 degrees, or I think that's the lowest that any of them go. But most of them are only 100% efficient down to 15, so you really don't want to push it past that 100% efficiency, because that's when you don't end up obviously being efficient with it, and it costs more to run. And the last thing I would say is just the actual efficiency of these, like I was just talking about with running it down to 100% efficiency. These things have extremely high SEER ratings, which is seasonal energy efficiency ratio. It's a mouthful, but what it basically is just how it judges a unit's efficiency. The minimum law requirement in New Hampshire right now is 13 SEER. These mini splits go all the way up to 24.5 SEER, sometimes a little higher than that, and the lowest ones are usually like 15. But your average is going to be somewhere in that 18 to 20 range, and so that's a really, really efficient system. So, you know, not only are like, people sometimes say, oh, you know, the window units do a good job. Yeah, the window units will cool your rooms and cool your house, but it's not bringing in clean air, and it's super inefficient. You're gonna spend a lot of money running those all summer, as opposed to a really efficient system like this, where it's gonna be more economical to be running it frequently. And you can also actually get rebates back from the state because they are that efficient. So it's an investment, but it ends up kind of paying for itself with the energy savings instead of using the window units, and the rebates that you can get back for using them as well. So those were just some of the common concerns I was seeing, or the most frequently asked questions about ductless. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and we'll try to help you out as best we can.